LGBTQ plus advocacy groups are warning of an alarming trend after the presidential election. The Rainbow Youth Project reports an unprecedented increase in crisis outreach. Data shows the national nonprofit received nearly 6,000 calls to its crisis hotline in the days surrounding the election. The LGBT National Hotline tells ABC News it's receiving 5 times the typical call volume, while the Trevor Project reports a nearly 700% increase to its crisis outreach on November 6th alone. The organizations say the calls involve concerns about LGBTQ plus discrimination, the fate of transgender health care access, and fear of being targeted by the Trump administration. But not everyone in the LGBTQ plus community agrees. Let's bring in ABC News senior Washington correspondent Devin Dwyer. Devin covers the Supreme Court for us, and executive director of the Rainbow Youth Project, Lance Preston, for more. Lance, you say your organization received calls from parents, grandparents, teachers, pastors, and more. So what are some of their top concerns, and how is the volume of calls now?
Well, thanks for having me this morning. The volume of calls is something that's unprecedented for us. It's higher than we've ever seen. Most of the concerns that's being expressed to us are, what are our rights? What are our rights under Title IX in school environments? Many are reporting harassment and bullying at schools following the election, and most of them are reaching out to try to figure out ways to support their LGBTQ teen as they go through, the next few months, and we see what challenges they're actually going to face.
Devin, what are you seeing and hearing from the LGBTQ plus community in terms of concern about health care and quality of life and other top issues?
Yeah, Diana, I mean, even before the election, we have been reporting extensively on a wave of state laws targeting health care access for this community, both rolling back anti-discrimination protections, but also seeking to block or outright ban treatments like puberty blockers or hormone therapy, which have been used safely for decades and are backed by the American medical community. 19 states, in fact, have moved to ban these treatments for minors, even though they've been used for years. And we recently sat down with a Nashville family, Brian and Samantha Williams, and their 16-year-old daughter, LW, to really get a sense of how they're feeling about all this and this legal effort to block their access to care their daughter's been receiving for 3 years. And here's how they're feeling about this current environment.
We talked to our pediatrician, we talked to an endocrinologist, and we had gone through, years of discussions with these people before we did anything. And yet, somebody who's a state legislature who doesn't have any medical background is going to tell me how I'm going to get medical care for my kid.
And you were seeing improvement.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You feel good about yourself.
It's like when you have a really well-fitting outfit or suit or whatever that just fits really well. That's what it feels like. But I mean, a million times better, because you can always take a ill-fitting suit off. That's something you can do, and you can put on a different suit. You can't really do that with your body.
And it took a lot of courage for LW there, who is in high school, to speak out. She didn't want her face to be shown, but she said these treatments, which have been used for kids of all gender identities for years, have really improved her life. And that family now has to travel out of state, Diane, to get that care quarterly to North Carolina. And they are now the face of a major Supreme Court case that will be argued just in a couple weeks here in Washington, a landmark case for LGBTQ rights, which will decide whether these laws banning care, this kind of medical care for transgender minors, is constitutional, Diane.
And Lance, you just spoke a little bit about the Rainbow Youth Project expressing concern about an increase in physical assaults reported against LGBTQ plus students in schools. So what's your organization hearing from these students, and what steps are they being advised to take?
It's really interesting because about 84% of our callers are currently reporting being bullied in school or harassed. We've also seen an escalation in physical assaults against these kids. Just in the past few weeks, we've had 3 such assaults, one in Chino Hills, California, one in Bellingham, Washington, resulting in a traumatic brain injury of a 16-year-old non-binary kid who was literally jumped and physically assaulted by 8 students while in school. So these increases have escalated, like I said, just in the past few weeks. Many of these parents are concerned about the safety of their children. We get calls asking about relocating to a different area. They're worried because schools are not necessarily taking the reports of bullying and harassment seriously. So they really are looking for what their protections are and better ways to protect their child both at home and at school, because the bullying now follows on social media and these kids are attacked 24 hours a day. We have also seen a rapid increase in suicidality. Just in the past couple of weeks, we know of at least 3 children that we have lost to suicide. This is very alarming as well. We refer young people to free mental health services that we provide across the country. Those referrals are usually around 17% of our calls. They're currently standing at 38.7%, and that increase has just been in November alone.
Now, Devin, a study by Pew Research Center in 2020 found 72% of Americans believe homosexuality should be accepted, a 23% increase from 2007. It also found 64% favored laws protecting transgender individuals. But we just saw more than half the country, including some in the LGBTQ+ community, vote for a president who said he would ask Congress to pass a bill stating there are only 2 genders and to ban hormonal or surgical intervention for transgender minors in all 50 states. What do you make of that?
Well, as we see all too often in our politics, Diane, the interests of a minority group, one that has been otherized and demeaned, in this case by a presidential candidate, clearly is not a motivating factor for voters. And the exit poll data from the election a couple weeks ago shows that it was subsumed by economic issues. So this is very troubling for LGBTQ people, especially trans kids and those families, a real feeling of abandonment, marginalization, and fear. So despite the polling, which you show that on the whole, most Americans favor respect, protection for people of all kinds, especially LGBTQ people, we are now in a state where we have a president coming in who has a track record of targeting this group. In fact, you remember he banned transgender people in the military, kicked them out of the military. He removed requirements that hospitals and doctors treat people regardless of their gender identity and sexual orientation. And he also opposed the Supreme Court decision banning employers from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation. So a lot of fear that we could be going back to those same policies.
Lance, how is your organization preparing now?
You know, we spent the past 3 months actually trying to prepare for this, but we did not prepare for it. It's just been completely overwhelming. And I'll also add that, you know, many of these young people are saying exactly, you know, what was just said, Diane. They feel like the majority of Americans sided with President Trump, and therefore they do not want them to exist. So what we're doing is trying to push more positive messages out there. We need these kids to know that we've been through challenging times before and we've persevered. I think my friend Kelly Robinson at the Human Rights Campaign summed it up when she said, we're heartbroken, but not broken. We just need them to stay with us and understand that we will continue to battle these potential legislations. We still don't know exactly what this new administration will do, but based on the history, we do not suspect that it's going to be good, especially for our young people.
And Devin, the ACLU says it filed 434 legal actions against the Trump administration during his first presidency. How are the courts preparing for a possible influx this time around?
Yeah, well, the courts, Diane, will be the guardrail against Trump and the administration coming in and a battleground, really, for a lot of the policies we were just talking about. These advocacy groups, ACLU, Human Rights Campaign, other groups are already vowing an aggressive litigation effort to block any of these discriminatory policies. And so get ready. None of these things that we're talking about and that there's so much fear about will be automatic. They will be challenged in the courts, Diane.
Devin Dwyer, Lance Preston, thank you. And if you are struggling with thoughts of suicide or worried about a friend or loved one, call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 for help. Free and confidential emotional support is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.